Awakening Code Radio with Eric Rankin. Mind-expanding talk and music every Tuesday night on KX 93.5.
So we're talking with Marie here. She has been on the Ancient Aliens show. She keeps she's going to be on it again this season. And she's written, I guess we ought to jump into it because I know we're just going to bounce all over the place with you because your mind, we had
my
coffee.
mind bounces all over.
Seriously, you can tell us some of the books, but the book I know that people are waiting to hear about was you wrote a book called 1111, The Time Prompt Phenomenon.
Yeah.
Now, did you write that because you were a person that noticed 1111? Or did it come about some other way?
It came about in a kind of interesting way. I had written a book called Science, P-S-I-E-N-C-E, by the way, that my publisher then had asked for another book. I know what happened. Larry Flaxman, who's my current co-author and partner, had contacted me after I wrote Science. And he was raving about the book, and we just hit it off. We became best pals and decided to work together. And I said, hey, have you ever written a book? Which he's probably shooting himself now that he said, no, let's do it. We actually went to my publisher and said, look, we'd like to write a book together. Larry has a real solid background in the paranormal and science, and, so do I. And they came to us and said, why don't you guys look into this 1111 thing?
So somebody at the publisher was aware of
Michael
it.
Pye, brilliant guy, comes up with great ideas. So Larry and I called each other. And we were like, 11, huh?
Yeah, what is that?
What? So we started looking into it, and we were really sort of blown away. We had time prompts. Neither one of us had specifically 1111. Mine were always 333 and 444, and still are to this day. Although now that we've written the book, we continue to see 1111 all the time.
And there's a lot of, even on the 1111 page, there are lots of people who, mine's 333, 444.
Right. And 1111, I think, is like the poster child for time prompts. So if you're not seeing 1111, don't worry.
Yeah, don't feel left out. It's
you
not
might
a
be
club.
seeing something else, but it's just, I think, probably the most widespread time prompt that people see. So we were shocked when we looked into it and we agreed to do the book. And it really sort of progressed into a book about the very magical, paranormal, supernatural, mystical nature of numbers, as you well know. Mm-hmm. And we got into everything from sacred geometry to very specific numbers and the meaning that they've had over time. And then also the idea that the universe itself is based on maybe just 6 or 7 mathematical ratios that, if any one of those ratios was tweaked ever so slightly, we wouldn't be here. And now we both hated numbers and math. After coming out of this book, it was just amazing, the respect that we had, the understanding that really the language of the universe is mathematical and numbers are magical. I know most people think of just high school math, and it leaves sort of a bad taste in your mouth. But it was our first book together. It's our bestseller. It's still selling like crazy, and I am still shocked to this day that we're both constantly getting emails from people saying, oh my God, what does this mean? What does this mean? Right. And I'm seeing 1111 everywhere, and so it's continuing. It's going on still to this day.
Well, yeah, and for me personally, now I'm a little bit opposite on you, that I started seeing 1111. I was 22. It was 82.
Wow, yeah.
And I remember it so clearly, and I had that experience where you back then, pre-internet and anything else, and finding anybody that was likely to see it, you felt like you were going crazy. And like many people do before they see that on the 1111 Awakening Code page, there's 250,000 fans on that page.
Yeah.
So obviously it is this global phenomenon.
It is global. Yeah.
And I just kind of thought, well, it'll just play itself out. But a lot of people, for me, there was a huge intrigue factor that pre-end of the Mayan calendar, that so much attention was focused on the shifting of the ages, the end of the Mayan long count, all this stuff. And it ended on an event. It didn't end on a day. It ended on an event on December 21st, 2020. It was the winter solstice.
Which began at 11:11 a.m.
It was 11:11 Greenwich Mean Time. I'm like, there's a very cosmic coincidence.
There's a connection.
Of a true connection between talking about people feeling, almost like that movie Close Encounters, seeing something and thinking this must mean something. And to me is like, wow, you're seeing 11:11 and supposedly the end of this paradigm. I never felt it as the end of the world, certainly.
Exactly.
The
Same
end
here.
of
Right.
a paradigm, end of a long cycle of time by these great mathematicians and astronomers.
And the beginning of a new one.
And
Sure.
the beginning of a new one. So since that time, in January, I was invited to be, because I also wrote a book about 11/11.
You did? That's how we met.
Yeah, mine was a novel, yours was nonfiction.
And we have a picture of the two of us together on the beach holding our 11/11 book.
Yeah, and very fun when we
That was
first met.
fun.
And mine, because it was about 2012, mine has fallen off its own fiscal cliff while yours is still selling. So good job not making it about 2012. But that book opened up so many doors for
It
me.
did, yeah.
And including, really, I'm going to have to say this, radio station, the people that I've met, the things that I do, the frequency experiments that I have going on at the Integratron, really all started from my triggering of 11/11. And so you talk about even numbers. One of the things that people noticed is that if you multiply ones, it doesn't matter how many you multiply times the same number of ones, you get what looks like a numerical pyramid.
Right.
So if you multiply 11 times 11 times 11, then you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, and all the numbers filling it in. And if you do it 100 11s times 100 11s, you get just a really
big pyramid.
You get a big pyramid.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, does that play into this whole thing and the meaning of what was the nature of pyramids, that there's still this stone monoliths that exist to trigger our consciousness, like they were
Right.
built so big and so durably that they're going to last thousands of years,
Right.
and still be there as this enigma, like we're still waiting for you to totally figure us out.
Yeah.
And
On a conscious level. I think
Right.
with the 11/11s and with numbers, I think what's happening is that there is a subconscious understanding of what these numbers mean. There's a subconscious understanding of what the symbols are trying to tell us. Yet we grapple with it on a conscious level. Well, I'm seeing 11/11s, but really my life is no different. Nothing is happening when I see them. What's going on here? And yes, there is the theory that it could just be your brain seeking a pattern, order out of chaos. But the people that Larry and I talked to were so profoundly moved that we had to really take a look at whether or not there was some kind of profound nature behind these time prompts.
Yeah.
And I think there is, because I've had them.
Yes.
But what I've come to understand is that you may never understand consciously what they're trying to tell you, but as long as you get it subconsciously, I think the same thing about crop circles and different kinds of iconography. We're not meant to get it consciously. It's, archetypes, things like that. We're meant to get it on a subconscious level. The subconscious is where it all happens anyway. I mean, 90% of our
What we do
reality, our
is
programming is subconscious.
Right. Our bodies function
Yeah.
they work
Yeah.
well without us thinking about them working.
Awakening Code Radio is available on podcast. Visit www.kx935.com. Click podcast, then scroll to Awakening Code's previous shows.